Hey everybody, I'm Oliver and this is Chaotic Bibliophile. So, April wrap up, let's go. I don't know when I'll catch up with anything else. The books are here, so let's talk about them. Really quickly, I'm going to mention that I read Solito by Javier Zamora and Eating to Extinction by Dan Saladino, and these are both for the Book to Prize. I am judging for the second round. I will skip the third round, but I will try and come back for the finals if they need more judges. I'm just going to say that I am enjoying this round so much more already. I am so excited. So I will talk about those books in the wrap up for that second round. And as I said, the wrap up for the first round is coming. So I'm really looking forward to talking about the past rounds books with you, because actually to this day, I don't know which ones made it. So April as a reading month was really chill. Like, I didn't finish many books, and actually at some point that did start getting on my nerves, because I was like, first of all, not reading a lot, but also just reading a little bit here, a little bit there, and that works sometimes for me. But I am now in a much more finish this kind of mood. Let's talk about, oh my god, I love all of these books. It's amazing. Okay, let's talk about all of these books, which I really enjoyed. And then I'm going to talk about the audiobooks and DNFs, because that I have to consult on my Storygraph. Okay, let's talk about this little book that I already recommended a friend, and I'm going to lend it to her. You Read It When You Talk by Sara Manville. I found this near the till at Rye Books, and I am so glad I picked it up because it is hilarious. It's basically flash fiction that all coalesces into one narrative, but it's mostly about being a queer woman dating in London, and it is hilarious. The author is Irish American, but she lives in London, so there's a lot of commentary on being an immigrant and being perceived as an outsider, although of course being from the US, that is a different sort of relationship, I would say, than being from somewhere else, but it's still super fascinating. And what makes it funny is that people are the worst and the way she tells these anecdotes are so just deadpan and kind of like, fuck's sake. And I really enjoyed it. So if you like that sort of Sex and the City-esque but done well kind of vibe, I would highly recommend this. It's really good. Then I read one of my favorite poetry collections possibly ever, England's Screen by Zaffar Kunial, and this was shortlisted, I think for the Rathbones Folio Prize. It didn't win, and I really want to read Quiet as well, so I'm not shading the decision, but I just really love this. It is all about being a person of color, having come here with your family and your family being like immigrants in England, but also being raised in the English tradition and loving a language that is not designed for you and being in between languages. There's so much intertextuality, there's so much referencing the Brontes and Shakespeare, and so much just analyzing and dissolving language. And actually that's how I came to this collection, because the first poem, Foxglove Country, was featured in The Guardian as a poem of the day, and it's so good. I really want to read you the first poem, so I'm gonna put like a separate timestamp so you can skip it in the chapters. I wrote next to it, this is one of the strongest starts to any collection, and I fully mean it. It's just, it encompasses the collection so well. Foxglove Country. Sometimes I like to hide in the word foxgloves, in the middle of foxgloves. The exegul is hard to say, out of the England of its harboring word. Alone it becomes a small tangle, a witch thimble, hard to toll bell, elvish door to a door, exegul. A place with a locked beginning, then a snack, a gull, like the English Englands of my grief, a knotted dark that locks light in glisten, glow, glint, gleam, and Oberon's bank of eglantin, which closes in on the opening of Gulliver, whose shrunken gull says rose in my fatherland. Meanwhile, in the motherland, the Ixg is almost the thumb of a lost mitten, an impossible interior, deeper than forests and further in. And deeper inland is the gulp, the gulf, the gap, the grip that goes before love. It's just so good. It's just so smart and playful and clever and it's like, for me, that poem is everything that I think poetry should be. It says something, it is commenting on like the tensions inherent in language, but also it's just delights in the language itself, and the references are funny and like very accessible if you sort of know English lit, but if you don't, you still get the delight of the poem itself, and it's so good. Also, it's separated into in and out. I definitely liked, I think, in much more, because it had more of that sort of playfulness with language, but I think it might be on my top 10 books of the year. Two novels that I loved and that kind of took me by surprise a little bit. Close to Home by Magee, and this is about a young man in Northern Ireland who has just come back from Liverpool, where he did English lit. I think it was English lit, or if not, it was something like creative writing, that sort of thing, in uni, and he's back home now. And the story starts right after he's punched someone, and that person is pressing charges. It is a look into being working class and young and sort of what possibilities there are for you. A big element of this violent act is that he doesn't want to plead guilty because he says he's not guilty, but he did punch someone, but he feels like it was self-defense because he was really used to being well known for being the brother of this guy that everyone respected and that like no one would touch him. But here he was like at a posh people party and everyone was looking down on him and he felt like cornered and alone. It's just really interesting how that plays out. It never relishes on that violence, and there is virtually no violence in the text. It's just all past, it's all off screen, but the effects of it, they just continue on. So he has to start doing community service and how that affects his income and stuff like that. Also, you know, his mom is not in the greatest place, and then there's all this stuff with his older brother who's trying to get his shit together but sometimes really fails to. He reignites this really romantic friendship with this girl who studied at Queen's, and she also did English lit, and now she's working as a waitress, but she is also selling drugs. Both of them want to do something else, something different, but they feel really entrapped by their circumstances. The writing is beautiful. It's so well done, and it was so compulsively readable, but in a way that it didn't feel like misery porn. It was just him trying his best. It just feels, it's a first person narrative, and it is one of those where the voice and everything feels just so there, so tangible, and you just want to dive in. I think it's also the perfect length, and it's a debut too, which I think is unbelievable. It's really, really good. Something completely different, but also really good, is Brainwyrms by Alison Rumfit. And this will be out on October 2023. Alison Rumfit became, really famous with her first novel, Tell Me I'm Worthless, which didn't receive as much attention as The Transition Baby by Tori Peters, but became kind of like a touchstone of trans writing. I haven't read that one yet. I really, really want to. So I'll be picking that up really soon. But this is a direct response to the transphobic climate that we are going through in the UK and the world, arguably. But like, it's really intense and really specific in the UK, like the way it's sort of surged beyond any measure or proportion. So this is about Frankie, who has, at the start of the book, it starts at the end and then sort of tells you how she got there. And Frankie is this trans woman who has been having really toxic and passionate romance with Vanya, who is a younger a non-binary person. They met at a club and they immediately started this relationship, but Vanya is also in a relationship with this guy who got them into parasite kink play, and that's the Brainwyrms aspect. Frankie works in a sort of commentary moderation side, so she is exposed to all this viciousness constantly and all this violence. And before that, she used to work at this clinic that got bombed by a terrorist turf, basically. And then there's this famous author figure who is sort of the anti-trans beacon, which is pretty clear who that is. And these two stories intertwine because the Brainwyrms, right, which is a metaphor for this infectious ideology and hatred, here it's made tangible. So there are actual worms and parasites involved. It gets meta, it gets gross, it gets super violent, but it never feels gratuitous. There is even a section where it's like you the reader, not you the person, because there is a second person narration aspect here. It's okay to take a break, it's okay to take a pause, but you the character, you don't get a pause because life is not like that. It's just so good. It's quite intense and it won't be everyone's cup of tea because it's again very gross and very violent, and it has a lot of body horror, but it is well done. It achieves what it's sets out to do. It's a satire and it doesn't pull any punches, but it's also rooted in like real dread and real fear of what we're going through in the current climate. It uses satire, but in a way that's not flippant, in a way that's actually interesting, and it deals with the emotions that and fears that underlie the bigotry that we experience. So yeah, I highly recommend, if it sounds like something you might be interested in, maybe read Alison Rumfit's first novel first as you wait for this to be released. And kind of related to that in a real obtuse way is Which, As You Know, Means Violence on Self-Injury as Art and Entertainment by Philippa Snow. This is blurred by Joanna Walsh, who says, the best book I read on art and pain since Maggie Nelson's Art of Cruelty. I haven't read The Art of Cruelty, but having read The Argonauts really recently, I just doubt it. This is a much more academic work. I can see this springing from like an essay or a dissertation that the author did, because it is about self-harm and pain as art and entertainment. But it's much more about where the line between art and entertainment is, because it starts talking about jackass and sort of the effect of jackass on culture. It also talks about like quote unquote considered high art and what like differs and how these are not as distinct as we would like to think. Which is a big thing in cultural commentary nowadays, like, oh, high art and, entertainment are not two completely separate things. It's mostly framing that distinguishes those, but the commentary and the act itself and its potential to affect culture are actually quite similar. And I agree, but I did think it lost a lot of steam. I think it started really strong with the introduction, and then the second one on women exerting violence on themselves as power and as art, but at the same time, to what degree is that replicating systemic violence? I think that was the strongest chapter. I didn't love the last one. I thought it kind of sort of lost steam, and when it ended, I was like, okay, I would still recommend it. I still think there is value if you're interested in violence and harm and cruelty in art, but I definitely want to check out the Maggie Nelson one, because I think this got a little too lost in analysis, and I think it needed a bigger picture kind of. It is a very slim book, so I think I needed a bit more, but the beginning especially, like again, analyzing Jackass's impact and how the Jackass creators also engaged with writers like Hunter S. Thompson. Again, on the chapter on sexism, that was also quite revelatory, how like Jackass is like so male coded, but there's also like a section where the author sort of queers Jackass and looks at it from like a queer lens, and those sections were so fascinating. So again, really interesting book, not quite completely baked thoughts, but still one that I will revisit, especially that chapter, as I said, on women artists that perform self-harm and violence on women in art. Interesting, not perfect, but still super glad I read it. Now, books that I don't have a physical copy of, and actually only have one DNF to tell you about, and that is August Blue by Deborah Levy. That is her newest. I think it's out now. Yeah, it is out now. I had approved, but I put it back. And actually another colleague took it, so hopefully she'll like it more than me. This is the story of two women. One of them is a pianist. She used to be a famous concert pianist. I think she's still famous. That's how she gets the next job. But she had like an incident on stage where she just couldn't keep playing and she had to leave. And that was like really traumatizing for her. And then she's now working as a teacher and teaching a boy. And she sees this woman on a market and she kind of becomes obsessed with her. That's as far as I got. I just thought it was so meh. And I know if I had read it, I would have been like, yep, that was a book that I read, and I have no patience for that anymore. Apart from books that I have to read for whatever project, I'm just not willing to invest my time on books that I just mid. I'm sorry. I really like on a sentence by sentence structure. I like how Deborah Levy writes. I enjoyed Hot Milk. I want to read her nonfiction because I can see how her nonfiction would be so much better. But this is just, I want more. I honestly, that's the only way I can put it. I just want more from my books. The other book that I want to tell you about is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste, which I actually listened to on audiobook. And I really, really liked it. Here's the thing with this book, however. I don't think is spectacular. I don't think it's like great literature. I think it is a really fun, engaging book, and it has some interesting commentary and it's well written. But I think the reason I loved it so much was because of the narration, because it is exactly the type of book that would lend itself to a film or to a show. And I do want to read Little Fires Everywhere. If the audiobook became available, I would actually like it more on audiobook because I don't think the prose is for me. It's all right. It's just like, yeah. So I should tell you what this is about in case you don't know, although this is a very famous book. And I do feel a little bit like I was the last person on this earth not having read it. It is about this family where the dad is Chinese and the mom is white, and they got married at a time where in some countries like interracial marriage was still, I don't remember if like strictly illegal, but definitely like really frowned upon. And so they have mixed race children. And it's set in the 80s where the middle child, Lydia, disappears. And we don't know what has happened to her. And it was revealed pretty early on what happens, and then it's just untangling that. Here's the thing. The book takes a really easy route in terms of how it tells the story. It's alternating chapters, different perspectives, different timelines. So it kind of like paints a picture and reveals stuff, little by little, in a way that's been done. I think the richest aspect of it is that it's a family drama that also deals with interracial and mixed race experience politics within the family, but also in society and on campus, and also, the myth of meritocracy. One of the most interesting elements is the wife wanted to be a doctor and she couldn't for many reasons. One of them is that she got pregnant, but she also couldn't do it afterwards either because life and because she was a woman, and it was just so hard for her to be accepted as a serious scientist. She was so frustrated with this that she placed a lot of her hopes on her daughter to be the science woman that she herself couldn't, even though she was so smart. The dad, on the other hand, placed all his eggs on the academic basket, and he got his PhD, and he was so sure that was going to be his ticket into being accepted by American society and stuff. And then when that didn't pan out the way he expected, he realized that connections and sort of likability and blending in and fitting in were more important. And so these children grew up with these competing visions of success and what success is and what is desirable, that is informed by the race of their parents, of course, and they are literally a mixture of both those influences, and that is fascinating. So if you're looking for a really readable book, one that will keep you engaged, that does plotting really well, where it's also like a quiet, kind of intense family drama situation, I really recommend this. I highly recommend the audiobook. It is only one narrator, but the way she does the voices is actually both supernatural, but then you also get the distinction for the characters, even like the younger characters. She's really good. That was Everything I Never Told You by Celeste. That is my wrap up for this month. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you want to read them after hearing me talk about them. Just tell me what you've been reading. I have been so absent from BookTube. I haven't been listening to many videos, and I haven't been commenting a lot, but I want to rectify that. There are a few events coming up, but I don't think I have the energy or time at the moment to like actively participate in them. I would like to create some content for Pride Month, however, so I might do that. And in any case, I hope you still like my videos, and every comment is really appreciated. I really enjoyed it, and I promise I will catch up. And if I sometimes am bad at leaving comments, I'm really sorry. But I'm really excited to catch up with videos and to just, engage more, because that is one of the beauties of this community. Yeah, that's it. See you next time.